Before we start the story, subscribe so you will get my latest videos. Let's start it. I used to think the lowest point of my life was the day my marriage ended. The day my wife packed a single suitcase and said she needed to rediscover herself. But I was wrong, because the real collapse came weeks later on a quiet Sunday morning in a small town near Seattle, when a knock on my door rewrote everything I believed about loss and kindness. My name is Michael Turner, and until that year my life felt ordinary in the safest way possible. I repaired household appliances for a living, lived in a modest home with peeling paint on the porch, and raised my 6-year-old daughter Grace, who believed pancakes could fix anything. Then my wife Laura left without anger or drama, just a calm sentence spoken with tired eyes. Divorce papers arrived quickly and silence followed even faster. The house that once echoed with laughter turned hollow. Mornings blended into nights. I survived by routine alone, waking early, making breakfast, taking Grace to school, working until my hands were sore, returning home to an empty kitchen. Routine kept me functioning but never healed the ache. Then came that knock, not loud, not rushed, hesitant and fragile. I opened the door and found Emily, Laura's younger sister, standing there trembling. During my marriage, she was always quiet, polite, distant, an elementary school librarian who avoided attention. But that morning her eyes were red, and her voice cracked as she spoke my name. She stepped inside slowly, looking around like the walls held memories too heavy to face. Then she whispered the words that stopped my breath. Laura is sick, very sick. She has leukemia. The room felt smaller. Sounds grew sharp. She told me Laura had known for months but chose silence. She didn't want pity, didn't want Grace to see her weak. She was in a hospital and asking for her daughter. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed Grace's jacket and we left. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet grief. Laura looked fragile, thinner, pale beneath a knitted cap. When Grace ran to her bed, she cried instantly, apologizing through tears for leaving, for thinking freedom meant escape. I stood back unsure of my place. Some moments don't need words. We returned every evening after that. Grace colored pictures. Laura slept more each day. Emily was always there, adjusting blankets, reading softly, guiding Grace with patience. She never demanded attention, never tried to replace anyone. She simply gave kindness without asking for it back. Slowly I noticed how deeply she cared, how she listened fully, how she carried grief without complaint. One night Laura squeezed my hand and whispered that Emily had been her strength when she had none, and asked me to take care of her too. The next morning Laura passed peacefully. Grief reshaped our lives into something quieter. Emily stayed close, first to help Grace cope, then to cook meals, then simply to sit and listen. Laughter returned gently to the house, not because someone replaced what was lost, but because someone brought warmth back into the silence. One rainy evening, I found Emily and Grace baking cookies, flour on their clothes, laughter filling the kitchen. Grace smiled innocently and said, "Aunt Emily, you should stay with us forever. Daddy smiles when you're here." Emily froze, her cheeks flushed. Later that night, she stood on the porch staring at the rain, and I told her she hadn't saved us, but reminded us we weren't alone. She cried softly, not from pain, but release. The next morning, Grace handed us a drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun labeled family. And in that moment, the weight I had carried for months lifted. Sometimes life doesn't rebuild us through grand gestures, but through quiet kindness, through people who show up without being asked. I lost loved ones, but found hope again, not in the past returning, but in someone who stood patiently through the storm, proving that even after heartbreak, warmth can find its way back home.